Hello, so welcome to a presentation of a recent webinar which the Southwest Cyber Resilience Centre delivered in collaboration with the Southwest Tourism Alliance and the Southwest Business Council. We were really pleased to be able to host this for representatives from the tourism sector, just to try and update them on some of the current threats which they need to be aware of in terms of their own cyber security. And why is that important? Well, recent government statistics show that roughly 2 in 5 businesses were subject of cyber attack last year, and where a business lost money as a result of that attack, the average cost was something in the region of £8,000. So a really significant and important threat, and one that seems to be growing. With that in mind, we hope that the following content is really useful for you. We intended there to be some great plain English hints and tips. I want to hand you over in a moment to the dark, shadowy figure who is Rob Partridge. Rob is a great catch for us at today's event, and he's very much from the dark side, although he works for the good guys. But Rob's going to talk to us a little bit about actually how the information that you may share online makes you very much more vulnerable, and some of the measures that you might practically take to make yourself a little bit safer. So Rob, if it works, I will pass the baton on to you, and we'll hope that things work properly for your presentation too.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you for that rather damning introduction almost. I'm not really from the dark side. I'm one of the good guys, I promise. But I will explain a few bits and pieces where that you wouldn't usually admit in front of a police officer in my 15 minutes that I've got. Now, I'm hoping that you can see some slides of mine on the screen. I'm not sure if you can or not, but if you can't, please let me know and I'll try and talk through them rather than allowing you to see them. So a quick introduction from me then. So I am Rob Partridge. I work for BT in our ethical hacking team. That means we try and hack our ways into systems and buildings to see where security vulnerabilities lie. I'm also quite passionate about developing the next generation of cybersecurity professionals. I'm a visiting professor in cybersecurity at De Montfort University in Leicester, and I also visit other universities around the world to try and do that as well. So it's quite an interesting role. Now I'm going to show you a picture on the screen. Hopefully you can see that. If you can't, it is a thing that popped up on Facebook that I saw just this morning actually. So it was one of these polls that you could do, and it says the song that was the #1 on your 7th birthday defines 2021 for you. So yeah, a bit of fun. You can think about that while I'm talking if you like. So I don't know what mine was. I haven't bothered looking it up. A friend of mine, Elizabeth, she replied and said "Nothing Compares to You" by Sinead O'Connor. So quite ironic really there. 2021, nothing compares to that, considering the year we've just had. So just consider that for a few moments. The next slide I have will give you a number, 32 milliseconds. And I don't know whether or not you understand the significance of what 32 milliseconds means. Well, that's the time it takes to reach any of your devices from anywhere on the globe. So the world has gone in the last 50 years, the world has gone from this huge place that takes ages for any kind of communication to get anywhere to somewhere that is so tiny now. And that's really, really good news for us, because it means that everything can be integrated with everything else. Everything can be connected from everything else. You know, when I'm driving my car up the road, when I get about 100 yards away from my house, I just say to the car, Alexa, switch the drive lights on, and my drive lights switch on. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. Now, that's because we have integration across our networks and we want things to happen. But sometimes poor security behaviors means that things are connected to things that really shouldn't be. And that can be quite good news for the bad guys as well. So
we can't see our slides at all on the call, so we're kind of flying blind.
Okay, I will try and talk through them a little bit more then. When the bad guys want to try and connect into a network, they might take a backwards route. So if I want to break into somebody's house, as an example, I might try the windows and the doors. That would be a typical burglar's attempt at getting into your house. A smart burglar might look at a row of terraced houses and see a house of interest and say, well, actually, I can't get in that house because they're really secure, but 3 doors along, I can get in the back door because they've left it open. And if I get into the loft, I could make my way up, make my way through the loft space and drop down into the house I'm interested in. That's what bad guys do on the internet. They look for surreptitious ways to sneak into places and ways to persuade people to give them information and to give them access to systems that would give them a little foothold, and to try and get really crucial information for them to steal information and to steal money, and then sell stuff as well. So they may not steal directly from you. They may just get a whole bunch of credit cards and personal information from you, but they can sell that on the dark web for a small amount of money. And when they've got that runs into the thousands of records, then they're making thousands of pounds. So I'm going to give you a quick story of something I did. And for whoever's operating the slides, I think you can see some stuff now. It's the slide that has burgling for dummies on as a slide there. If you can just advance to there, please, that would be really useful. My team specializes in working with very large organizations to see where their security vulnerabilities lie. And that might be within their cybersecurity estate, so their computer estate, or it might be within their physical estate, so the locks on their doors and the burglar alarms on their offices and things like that. Or it might be within the policies and the strategies they set with their people and how their people react to people. So about this time last year, I was doing a test. It was in a major capital city. And it was with an extremely large multi-billion-pound organization. Now, I know that doesn't really compare to the kinds of organizations that you come from, but actually the techniques we use would be exactly the same as the techniques an attacker might use to infiltrate your records and your computer databases and your credit card records and things like that. So we wanted to break into this office, break into a particular computer on the 7th floor of this office, and manipulate one of their trades. And that was the objective we got given by the organization. There was a couple of issues with this. The office was extremely secure to start with, and it was dead opposite a police station. So if we were hanging around looking a little bit suspect outside, we were probably going to get picked up by the police as well. We do actually tell the police that we're operating, but that tends to kind of give them an excuse to do extra patrols to see if they can spot us, because they treat it as a training exercise as well. So anyway, we did lots and lots of surveillance on this building. We tried to hack our way in, and we realized that we weren't going to be able to hack our way onto their networks from outside. So what we needed to do was get inside and plant a device that enables us to bridge onto the network. We also wanted to get in and put a thing called a keylogger onto a computer, which gave us all of the passwords for this particular computer we wanted to access as well. And that's just a tiny little thing that you plug into the back of the computer. You wouldn't recognize, you wouldn't notice it. They're so small. It goes into a USB socket, and that will log everything that's typed on the keyboard of that computer. But we needed to break into this office to do that. Doors were really secure. The security on the front door was really good, apart from a couple of things which I'll explain about in a moment. Fire exits were well secured. Windows downstairs had one-way glass on them, so it was going to be a tough job. So I came up with the idea of walking around local pubs and coffee shops and wandering in and asking if any pass cards had been handed in, because I've lost my pass card. And unfortunately, that didn't yield any results. So we moved on to another little thing, and we tried to sort of like blag our way in. We sort of pretended we had meetings and that sort of stuff, but security were excellent. And then one evening, after doing some surveillance on the building, because we like to see the pattern of life, see who comes and goes, what pubs they go to, what coffee shops they go to, when the building's occupied, when it's not occupied, those kinds of things. We were doing some surveillance, and I happened to be in a pub more or less opposite the building. I could keep an eye on the building, and I was at the bar. Now, when you're doing surveillance, by the way, and the police officer on the someone's talking not on mute, by the way. If they could go on mute, that would be useful.
I'm just going to keep an ear accent if he wants to advance on the slides.
Mark, you need to go on mute.
Thanks, Mark. When you're doing surveillance and you're doing surveillance in a pub on your own as a bloke, you don't stand at the bar and drink Coke because you stick out like a sore thumb. So I'll stand at the bar drinking a couple of pints of lager and keep an eye on the building opposite and just watching what happened. And I happened to just recognise that the table behind me were employees of this organisation. And they were celebrating something, I assume, because they were buying lots and lots of champagne and they were getting quite drunk and they were having a very good time and enjoying themselves a lot. What I noticed was that when they came to the bar, if they showed their pass card for the building, they got a discount on their drinks, which was quite nice for them, 10% discount on bottles of champagne, worth having. But as the evening wore on and they were getting more and more inebriated, they were getting less and less protective of their ID cards. And one guy came to the bar and he ordered his round of champagne and he left his ID card on the bar while he took the drinks back to the table. So quick as a flash, that ID card went in my pocket. I shot out to the toilets. I rang my mate who was over in in a office that we'd hired for the duration of the project. I told him to get over there as soon as we could with some card duplicating equipment, because these cards have it's like your credit card where you tap it on your tap to pay thing. You could tap it on a reader on the doors and the doors would open for you. And we've got some kit that will duplicate that and crack those codes in those cards. So he literally sprinted to the pub, shot into the toilets, into the cubicle that I was in. Could look a little bit dodgy, that. We duplicated the card and then we left the toilets. I left a second or two after my colleague. He had the card in his hand. He dropped it behind the man who had left it on the bar. As I walked past, I bent down and picked it up and I gave it back to the chap. And I said, "Excuse me, I think you may have dropped this." And he actually said to me, he said, "Oh, thank you so much. I'd have been in a whole world of trouble if I'd lost that." He didn't know what had gone on in the last couple of minutes that we'd had that card in our possession, obviously. We then shot across to the building, used the card on the card reader. It gave us unequivocal access to the entire building. We got to the computer we needed. We put a keylogger on it. We also put a device on that gave us access onto their network remotely. And then the very next morning, we were able to potentially manipulate one of their trades, and we could have diverted funds into our own accounts. We didn't actually do that. What we do is we leave a little bit of evidence to prove that we could have done. We could have stolen that morning nearly £500 million, and that was quite a result for us. And that could have been prevented by, instead of showing your ID card for a discount, that organisation just producing a cardboard discount card for showing in local coffee shops and pubs. And it's such a tiny, tiny thing, but it left that organisation open to attack. Now, that kind of thing isn't really relevant to you because you don't run multi-billion-pound organisations unless you happen to be the owner of IHG Hotels or something like that. But the techniques we used are quite similar. And I can usually, when I give the presentation on that particular organisation, that presentation lasts a couple of hours, and I talk about all sorts of things that we did. If we can move on to the next slide, please. The techniques we used would be relevant for you. You're still at risk, and we used things called phishing, smishing. So phishing is emails that come asking you to put information in and it will get your password. Vishing is when you have phone calls, and I'm sure you've all had those. "Hello, I'm from Microsoft. You've got a virus on your computer." Those kinds of things. Smishing is when you get the same thing via SMS. Hacking and cracking, where we do all that kind of thing as well. We might be able to get a file off your computer, or we'll crack passwords. And we'll talk about the whole Facebook thing in a moment. The kind of questions that you need to ask are, who is an email or a text from? What are they asking for, and why are they asking for it? I regularly get texts on my phone from Lloyds Bank telling me that my account has been compromised and I need to log on with my password to prevent it from having fraudulent use on it. Well, I don't even have a Lloyd's bank account, so I know that's false. But if it came from one of the two organisations I do have high street bank accounts with, then maybe I might think that there was a problem. But what I actually know is because I've read the fraud policies on NatWest and Santander are the two banks I use. I know that they would never contact me like that via SMS because they've said so on their website. And so if I get that from one of those organizations, I know I can just ignore it. If it was repetitive, I could report it if I wanted to. Why is somebody calling you and what they asking you? Do they really know who you are? So, when one of the, I often normally have a little bit of fun when I get somebody ring pretending to be from Microsoft, telling me that I've got viruses on my computer, or they pretend to be from HM Revenue and Customs, telling me that there's a tax fraud case against me, they ask me who I am is the first thing they ask, which is ridiculous. If they were calling me, they would know who I am. But you can often have some fun with them when they're asking you to open your windows, and I can tell them that I've been all around my house opening my windows, but nothing's changed and things like that. I just like to waste their time because it's the kind of person I am, really. You need to be wary of why somebody is contact with you and question everything. Okay, things about passwords. Do you reuse passwords? A lot of people use the same password for every website. That's a fairly poor thing to do, because if you lose one password, you've lost all of them. And what a hacker will do is, if they crack one of your passwords, they'll immediately look at everything else that you use, and that's usually quite easy to do because you'll have usernames and you can Google usernames and you can put usernames onto databases on the dark web, look for web forums you might subscribe to and things like that, and they'll just try that password across those. It's called sort of blasting out passwords and things like that, and it's the kind of thing a hacker will do. And if your passwords are easy to crack, if they're I don't know, I support West Ham. If my password is West Ham 1, well, I could crack that in a matter of seconds. So passwords, are always stored encrypted, but we have things called rainbow lists and lists with known words in them and known phrases. So West Ham 1 would definitely be in there because it's a football club and it's a number. And we know what the encrypted version of that looks like. We compare it to your encryption text and we can crack the password. If you have a complicated password that isn't likely to be in a rainbow list or a dictionary list, it's much harder to do. So random letters and numbers is really good. Lots of words put together, so a phrase is really good. So I don't know, the opening line of your favorite book or something along those lines, or the opening line of your favorite song. Because it's more than 2 or 3 words, it's really difficult for dictionary brute force password attacks, but it's also really easy to remember. But you do need to do something different for each of the websites that you use. So you need to be a human firewall. You need to challenge everything, and also consider what you're putting out on social media. And that's probably particularly relevant for you guys because you have things like your social media advertising and things like that, and some of the things that you put on there can make it quite easy to con you. Can I guess a password reset question from it, for example? So going back to my original example there, if we can just go on to my last slide, please. The song that was #1 on your 7th birthday defines 2021 for you. Well, my friend Elizabeth put Nothing Compares to You by Sinead O'Connor. So that means that the #1 there on her 7th birthday was Nothing Compares to You by Sinead O'Connor. That means I now have Elizabeth's date of birth. Okay, that's not something you usually put on Facebook, your date of birth, but she's put it on there for me by answering that question. And then when she answers the question that says, your Bollywood actor name is the first curry you ate, followed by your mother's maiden name, and she puts it on there saying, oh, I'm Korma Smith, or something like that, suddenly we have her mother's maiden name as well. And this might not happen on the same day. It might happen many months apart, but you can build quite a comprehensive picture up of a person by all these little quizzes that you answer with these little things. So when you answer these quizzes, do it if you want to for a bit. But think about what you're putting on there. Does me saying that Nothing Compares to You was #1 on the 20th of Jan 1990 mean that I'm giving my date of birth away? Have I given my mother's maiden name away? Have I given the name of my first car away? Because that's another good security question. Those kinds of things are really obvious tactics to build a comprehensive picture up of you that a hacker could use to crack your your passwords and get password resets. And when you have your Facebook account hacked and they change your password, when you have your email account hacked and they change your password, that's exactly what's gone on. That's exactly how they've recovered that information. 99.99999% of the internet is a very, very safe place to be, and it's an amazing tool, especially for tourism. Certainly when I'm looking to go away, when I go camping or I go on holiday, I use the internet ad infinitum to read reviews and book sites and book B&Bs and things like that. And it's not, compare that to 30 years ago when you used to have to ring tourist information sites and get information. It's just so much better now. It's a brilliant tool, but there is that tiny element of it that can leave you open to attack, so please be careful. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I'll pass on to whoever's talking next.
Yeah, thank you. I think that'll be me then. So, Rob, really appreciate that. Some great advice on there and some of the basics that people need to do to keep them safe. Simple stuff like not using the same passwords across different domains, really, really helpful. And I guess if you can have specialist ones, particularly for banking, for some of those crucial areas that you use, then that's a really good security conscious move to make. So some other great stuff about what we're sharing about ourselves on social media. So again, this stuff isn't necessarily rocket science. It's not always a conversation about firewalls. So I wanted briefly to introduce, if we can queue up the next slides, please, just the Southwest Cyber Resilience Centre, what we are and how we can try and help in the picture. I've briefly introduced myself to date. So I'm a serving police officer with Devon and Cornwall, currently seconded to put together the Cyber Resilience Centre, which is part of a national programme that's being supported by the Home Office. The really important thing that I'm always keen to stress here is that we are not for profit. There's no motive of getting people to buy services. The motive for us is about making people safe and saving people that average hit of £3,100 if the business is successfully scammed. So although I'm a serving police officer, and do you know what, I'm not a cyber expert, I have a lot of backup and guidance behind me, and part of our role is to try and introduce that backup, that guidance and that support to you as a small business owner so that you can make yourself safe. So let's talk about the free membership offer if I move on to the next slide. What we do for small businesses, you can register on our website, www.swcrc.co.uk. And if you register for free membership on our website, we'll do a few things. The first thing that we'll do is that we'll send you some really simple guidance, some of the kind of things that Rob's kindly spoken to us about how to make yourself safe online. So what does a good password look like? How often should you change it? What kind of moves should you be making in terms of backing up your systems? All those kind of really simple things, we can provide you with guidance around that. We can signpost you to free e-learning for your staff. So if you've got a few people working for you and want to make sure that they don't click on the wrong sort of email, we can give you that kind of stuff for nothing. And we'll phone you up a couple of days afterwards and we'll make sure that that's made sense to you, because it's really important to us that you have a human contact. More importantly, on a monthly basis, we'll come back to you with the latest kind of scams that we're seeing around the region so that you know the sort of emails to look out for, because do you know what? They're not all now the bad grammar ones that we all thought we could spot a year ago. Increasingly, they look like Microsoft login details. So if you don't know that, you're far more vulnerable. So our job is to try and keep you briefed and up to speed. And we'll run free webinars too to talk through some of the key issues that you might be telling us are of concern for you. So that's the first part of what we do. It's the major part, it's the most important part, and it's free. The next part of what we do is that we try and hold your hand a little bit through the cyber journey. So if I try and move us on to the next slide, I'm going to talk to you about some of the services that we can deliver. So we work with local universities across the region. So at the moment, Plymouth, the University of the West of England, Bournemouth, and we use some of their best, brightest ethical hacking students to provide services at what are really inexpensive rates for you. So those might be things like, picking up from Rob's conversation, what is the information that's out there about you and your business online? So that if someone contacts you using that kind of information as proof of their credentials, you can be a little bit suspicious. We can deliver bespoke training to your staff and to yourself. We can look at how vulnerable your systems are. So if you're significantly internet-based, for example, we can try the kind of top 10 methods of attack and let you know how vulnerable you would be to a genuine attack. So there are a host of different things that we can do for you. All of those will be done in an insured, professional way under proper supervision, but really importantly, you won't need to break the bank to access them necessarily. So we try and help you onto that first stage of getting some really bespoke advice for your business. The next thing that we do, and it's going to move me on towards our next speaker, is that we provide, in conjunction with a number of trusted partners, some commercial referrals for you. So we're collaborating with 8 companies around the region. I want to be really transparent, actually. We don't get kickbacks every time we refer to those. That isn't what this is about. But the reason that we refer to these companies is because they're local. They work really well with small businesses, and they bought into our vision to do that. And most importantly, we know that they know their stuff. How do we know that? Because nationally, there's a scheme that's recognised by the government, the National Cyber Security Centre, and it's called Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus. And that's a real kind of badge, a kite mark, if you will, to show that your business has hit a decent standard of cyber safety and cyber hygiene. And all of these companies know enough to have been accredited to accredit you in turn as being that kind of level of technical competence. So that's the overall model from us. It's a police-private partnership. We're here to help, and we don't cost a penny. So although in today's conversation we can only put over, if you like, the top of the iceberg about what we can offer, if you sign up on our website, we can give you a lot more detail about protecting yourself and your business. So that's probably it from me in terms of the Cyber Resilience Centre. What I'm going to do now is pass over to Ros from Securius, who is one of our trusted partners. I know she's going to talk to you for a moment around some of the Cyber Essentials scheme. Ros.
Thanks, Mark. That's it's great to have a bit of an introduction to Cyber Essentials. Just a quick overview. We're Securius, so we're based at the Science Park Centre in Exeter, and we've been a Cyber Essentials certification body since 2015, and the scheme started in June 2014. So we've been around a bit doing this. But what I thought would be a good idea would just to get one of our assessors to give you an overview of what the controls mean and why they're really going to help you. So we've done a short video, and perhaps if we can show that now, that would be great.
Here's a quick guide to Cyber Essentials, what it is, why you should want it, and how to get it. First, I'm going to give you an overview of the scheme, its purpose and value, and then my colleague Anne is going to run through the 5 areas that Cyber Essentials covers so you get a much clearer grasp of what's involved. So what is Cyber Essentials? Cyber Essentials is a great first step towards making your systems more secure. It also helps you prove to suppliers that you are taking cybersecurity seriously. Cyber Essentials certifications are suitable for organisations of all sizes. They are backed by the government and supported by the National Cyber Security Centre and the Information Commissioner. And why should you want it? Cyber Essentials helps you guard against 80% of the most common forms of cyber attacks and includes automatic cyber liability insurance. Cyber Essentials is increasingly required if you want to provide services to large clients so they can be sure you aren't a weak link in their security chain. Okay, so how do you get it? Cyber Essentials consists of a simple self-assessment questionnaire that asks you about what you have in place to protect your business from cyber threats. It covers 5 specific controls that have been produced by the government and industry bodies. To understand these better, my colleague Anne, who has helped dozens of clients with their Cyber Essentials, is going to run through them.
Keep your devices and software up to date. Ensuring that all your devices, operating systems and applications are up to date is very important because manufacturers and developers regularly release patches to address security vulnerabilities that have been discovered. Cyber Essentials will enable you to identify if you are running unsupported software and if your supported applications and operating systems are up to date. If your devices and software aren't up to date, it's like having no cyber front door at all. Protect yourself from viruses and other malware. Protecting your systems with antivirus software, intrusion detection and prevention systems would be akin to having CCTV or a security guard at your entrance, alerting you to potential threats and even stopping them on your behalf. Most popular operating systems include effective virus and threat protection if all the modules are enabled. How is your configuration? Having no antivirus or intrusion protection is like leaving your cyber front door wide open. Control who has access to your data and services. Would you let everyone you know have a key to your home? No way. Cyber Essentials helps you take control of who has access to your data and services. Often clients don't understand the significance of administrator and standard user accounts, and yet getting this wrong could result in an intruder having access to far more than you'd like. Having no access controls is like leaving your cybersecurity front door ajar. Secure settings for your devices and software. Most devices and software applications are supplied with default configurations that make getting started easy for the user. However, as before, leaving default settings can make it easier for cyber attackers to gain access to your data. Sharing user accounts and logging credentials and having weak passwords also represents a significant risk. Not using secure settings on devices and software is like leaving your cyber front door closed but on the latch. Use a firewall to secure your internet connection. Do you have a firewall? Of course you do. A larger organisation may have a bespoke firewall device. A smaller company or home worker will have a software firewall built into the hub or the router provided by their ISP. But let me ask you this, have you changed the default password to your firewall or router? No? A misconfigured firewall is like leaving your cyber front door closed but not locked.
So there you have it. There's nothing scary involved, and once you've achieved Cyber Essentials, not only are you likely to be more secure, you can also use it to open new opportunities and differentiate yourself from your competitors. Oh, final point, how much does Cyber Essentials cost? The cost of the certification is limited by the government to just £295 plus VAT. Securious is a Cyber Essentials certification body, and we've been helping businesses achieve Cyber Essentials certification since 2015. We also have an assisted package for people who need a bit more help. If you have any questions, send us an email to info@securious.co.uk.
Hi. So I just wanted to, hopefully that video ran okay, but I just wanted to say that unfortunately quite a lot of the breaches that we've seen certainly recently would certainly have been avoided if these basic controls had been in place. So if you are handling PII, I would say that it's really important to start thinking about what you have got in place, and then think about aligning to these controls. This is a government-backed scheme, and it's a really good way of making sure that you have the basics in place. Thanks so much.
That's great. Thanks, Ros. Thanks so much for that video. I think some really interesting stuff on there. So I'd like to introduce a colleague of mine, if I may, Ross Brown. Ross is a serving officer from the Dorset Force. Ross, I know, has been looking at questions and answers from the group, and also potentially one or two to pose to us. So if I can ask everybody to go back onto cameras. Ross, are there any points coming out of this briefing that we just need to try and explore a little bit further?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I appreciate that. What I have done is, for those of you who are participating this morning, I've put out on the chat, which comes up at the bottom of the screen, requests for questions. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to type them in there. I'll pick them up, and then I can ask the panel to ask on your behalf. So Rob, if I can come to you first, Just a very, very quick question, if I may. Obviously, you made quite a lot of store about passwords. What are your thoughts on using password managers?
Yeah, the majority of them are pretty good. So I certainly use one on my Apple devices. They have, especially the ones where passwords are created for you. The passwords are extremely secure. They're literally just random letters, numbers, and characters that you probably wouldn't be able to remember if you saw them written down. So in those instances, they're quite good. Password managers that are simply storing your own created passwords, not so good, because that relies on the strength of your password, of the password that you created.
Okay. And are they relatively inexpensive? Because obviously that's one of the things that we're very keen on with the Southwest Cyber Resilience Centre is to keep costs down. Are they relatively inexpensive?
Well, certainly if you use Apple devices or Android devices, they're free. They're built into devices, and a lot of browsers now have them built in as well. So I use the Firefox browser, and there is a secure password manager built into that, which I use. I don't use it for really critical things because I don't quite trust it. That's my personal opinion. It's probably just me being paranoid. So for my banking and things like that, I use my own created passwords, and I don't store those passwords on any devices either. But for things like web forums that I'm members of, and bits and pieces like that, then I do use them for that. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. That's really helpful. And Ros, perhaps if I could ask you this, and I might come to some of the other members of the panel as well. In relation to what we've spoken about this morning, are there three very simple pieces of advice that you would like the participants to go away from this webinar and implement, which are simple and relatively inexpensive?
I think, my thing is always to start with, understanding exactly what data you have, what's critical to your business, and then start thinking about, how am I protecting it? Do I know, where it is, what potentially could happen to it, and start doing some form of risk analysis on it. Obviously putting the basic controls in place, which, something like Cyber Essentials or certainly the Cyber Resilience Centre will be able to help with it. And I think having some sort of breach response plan in place, so you know exactly what you would do if the worst happened.
Okay, thanks, Ros. Mark, I don't want to put you on the spot, but are there sort of three things that you would perhaps want participants to leave the webinar and implement this morning?
There's probably one, if I'm honest, because there are some really simple things. I know the National Cyber Security Centre, which is the government's key body, produces some really great checklists for people. Talk about cyber essentials, doing the cyber basics things, 4 or 5 things that will make a real difference to your business. And then we could have a really short conversation around things like passwords or backup, or making sure that your systems are updated regularly. And if you force me to give 3, it'll probably be those 3. But actually, why not just do the one thing of sign up for free membership and allow us to send you some really simple checklists that you can work your way through as and when you've got time, and do some very simple stuff that just keeps your business a great deal safer. It's not rocket science stuff. If you need to get into that, you can, and we can help you with that. But doing the real basic stuff makes such a difference. So signing up is the first place to start.
Thanks, Mark. Alistair, I saw you nodding in agreement. Would you like to come in on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think that some very basic steps have been pointed out today, and they would make a great start for everybody. All of the links on the Cyber Resilience Centre are, easily accessible. Just type in Cyber Resilience Centre Southwest in Google, and you'll get straight there. And then you can get hold of some of these tools so that you can start the process of protecting your business. And if you find that you need to go deeper, then you've been introduced to the kind of people that can help you if your risk is much greater. There's all kinds of things that we all should be doing. I mean, I have to say, I didn't know that you could do that with password managers. So I've written down password manager on my to-do list, and probably suggest that everybody else does exactly the same thing. So, you know, if everybody took single steps like that, they would go much further towards protecting themselves and protecting their businesses. So there've been some great tips today. You know, just say follow them.
Thanks, Alistair. I suppose in terms of, you know, the Southwest Cyber Resilience Centre being a police-led organisation, Mark, is there anywhere that you can help, or any way that you can help the participants sort of segment the market in terms of those police actors already involved in cybercrime detection and prevention?
Yeah, so there are existing police teams that work really hard in this area to protect your business, and they will and can provide a degree of free training as well if we get the kind of right size audience for them. So we will always try and refer on where we can for free services. If we know that someone's been a victim of cyber crime, then we'll talk those people through the reporting mechanisms and try and help hold their hand and work them through what to do next. The real point of difference for us, the really critical one, is firstly, I suppose, a commercial footing for us. So we expect to have a continuing relationship with companies that are signed up for us. So that monthly update thing is a really important part of our model. But more than that, once you've moved beyond the really, really simple stuff, it may well be that you do want to look at some of the technical aspects around your business. And of course, policing can't recommend to you who should fit your digital door lock or what that should look like. So our ability to provide paid services directly is a really important thing as a business grows, because we know that actually getting into the cyber landscape is really tough. It's that kind of trusted trader thing. You know, where do you start? With a Google search for who's good to use? We can direct you towards some really reputable companies. So that's the key point of difference for us. But of course, we'll overlap with the existing police resources wherever we can.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Well, in fairness, we've seemed to have exhausted the questions at this stage. And certainly if there are any more questions, probably now is a really good time to ask them, whilst we've still got the panel in situ. But if there are no further questions, I don't know, Mark, if I'll hand back to you.
Yeah, that's great. So thank you very much for your time on the call this morning. I know that time is precious, particularly at the moment. I'd like to thank again Alistair and Paul for their time, Ros for coming and joining us, and Rob. All of these people have done it on a voluntary basis and to try and make you safer. So thank you to everybody for this morning's call. We really hope you've got something useful out of it. Please drop by on our website, sign up, and we'll be back in touch with you and do our utmost to keep you safe into the future. So thank you, folks, and from all of us, goodbye.